Welcome to Violet Crush Month 1. Before we get started, I would like for you to know that you need to have a size 70 needle. I would start with a new needle, full bobbin, and lots of thread. I've already done 4 of the blocks that have this layout. Today we're going to work on block 1A. I've done some prep work to make it a little faster. I know you don't want to sit and watch me all day sew when you could be sewing. So we're going to start. Make sure I like to make a copy of my pattern so I can mark on it. When you're cutting, make sure you mark each time that you've cut your pieces. Label. Every fabric has to have a label on it or you will get lost. So we're going to start with making unit 1A. That's a 2.5 inch square of fabric O and fabric I. Sorry, I have to reach in front of you, but I'm new to all this video and we'll just do the best we can do. This is known as a sandpaper board. It's very good for keeping your fabric from moving while you're marking all your diagonal lines. I most of the time just use a soft lead pencil to mark with. So we're going to start by matching our fabrics. And the best thing about batiks is there's no right or wrong side. So choose whichever side makes you the happiest. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch on each side of this line. Before starting, make sure you have an exact 1/4 inch. You may have to move your needle to the right just a little bit. A lot of times I will just go ahead and move one position to the right just for making more of a scant 1/4. So you will be doing all of your blocks at the same time, so you'll be chain stitching. I just didn't want you to have to watch me do 5 blocks. So let's finish this one up. I like to use these little cut-off pieces from all the trimming that we do and use those as leaders and enders. And if you're not familiar with that, this is one of the wisest things to do because it keeps your fabric from being pulled down in the hole by the feed dogs. Let me move this out of our way. I'm going to have to do a lot of moving back and forth because I am not a sit-down instructor. I like to be up moving, but I'm trying to do everything by sitting. We're going to trim this on the line that we drew. We're going to press, put your dark side up. You need to set your seams. My iron's been off for just a minute, so let's give it a chance to warm back up. Open. Slide your iron in so it opens that up nice and we get a nice flat half square triangle block. Your instructions tell you after you get all of these done to trim them up to 2-inch square. I have a 2.5 inch square ruler, which makes it easy. So you line up your diagonal line. Make sure you trim a little off each side. That gives you a much nicer finished piece. And I'm going to try my best to stay out of the picture, but we'll just do the best we can. Make sure you get that diagonal line on your center or you'll have a strange looking square when you're finished. This also cuts off all the little dog ears. Okay. We have our nice little pieces. Let me trim that off. This is some exceptionally nice fabric. It presses very flat. It doesn't fray. I'm going to go ahead and press again just because the iron was not as hot as I would like for it to be. Now that we have these done, you can see in your instructions that this is considered to be Unit A. It is extremely important to label as you go, every single unit. I normally just use, which I've disappeared from myself again, a small post-it note. Let me get it in the picture here. There we go. And just a pencil. I did print some up on the computer, but I didn't print enough. Going down the line, now we're going to work on Unit 2A and 2B. I have those labeled. This is the two pieces that will be the most complicated to do because you have to make sure, as you can see here, one goes to the right and one goes to the left. We're going to mark these. On dark fabrics, I prefer to use this Soline white marker because it does such a great job. And I will tell you in advance, if you have a purple cutting mat, you need a different color. Because I learned with mine, you can't cut purple on a purple mat. You can't see where it is. So, let's lay these out so we make sure we do them correctly. We're going to sew with our diagonal for this one. You can see when you flip it back, that's correct. This one is going to go this way. So on the line, directly on your line, it starts sewing from the wide side of the fabric, not the point. Now these are easy to get turned around. So look at your diagram. It's same as for cutting. Look 3 times and make sure you have it correct before you cut. And as I said before, I'm using all these little cut-off pieces as leaders and enders because they do make nice little tiny blocks that you can play with later to make other things. Now I also like to use my gypsy quilter for cutting the threads when chain sewing. Once again, we're going to open these up and look at our pattern. This one is going to open up to the right. This one's going to open to the left. I want to set my seams before I cut. I like everything to be nice and flat. We're going to cut a 1/4 inch away from our stitched line. Now we're going to press these open. Whenever you're pressing, we normally press to the dark. There are some exceptions. When you're getting your fabric ready to be pressed, whatever you want going pressed, you put that on top. So now we have a left and a right. These are now known as units 2A and 2B. And let me get my little papers out here. Right is B, left is A. We're going to put those right there. I went ahead and did several of the pieces so that you didn't have to just wait for me to sew and sew and sew. So now we're going to go down, next page. We're working on unit 3A, fabrics I and O. This is known as a flying geese unit. So we'll mark the light colored pieces. This is a little rough on your fingernails, but it's much better than your fabric sliding while you're trying to mark. Now I do my flying geese in a different manner than most people do, and I will explain why. Most everybody does theirs left side first, but I prefer to do the right side first because I find that I get a better finished unit. So we're going to stitch on the line again. And when you're doing all of these, according to your instructions, you can chain piece, and that's much faster than what I'm doing, but I just didn't want to waste your time watching a video when you could be sewing. I have been through all the instructions. They're all correct. No issues at all. Set our seam. I know this is a lot of moving stuff back and forth, but this is the best way that I know to show you. Cut a 1/4 inch away from your stitched line. Press again. Press open. And I am using an Oliso iron because when I let go, it raises itself up off the fabric. Now we're going to do our left side. Straight line this way. Now we're going to sew from the bottom corner up. Reason being, most generally when you're sewing, your fabric's going to get pushed a little bit. I would rather it be pushed up so that I make sure that I have my 1/4 inch from here to here. I used to do all my flying geese the other direction, and I would end up taking them apart because they would not be as good as I wanted them to be. Set your seam, bring your cutting mat back. This is not my normal setup, and I am so new to recording my classes, so please forgive me. I try to keep everything where it makes me get up to walk across the room. And when I teach classes, I don't sit. I like to stand up so I can see what's going on everywhere. We're going to press this to the side. Flying geese. This one is known as Unit 3A. So let's label it, put it up here. Now we're going to make Unit 3B. Same process, mark your what is known as the wings. These are the wings and this is the body of the goose. Mark a line. Another line. There is different products that you can get to do instead of marking all these lines. And I've tried most of them, but I don't like them. So I always go back to this unless it's something I can cut with AccuQuilt cutter. And after we complete this block, I will show you how to make a flying geese with the AccuQuilt, because it eliminates all of this trimming that takes a lot of time. This is the most intricate block of the entire quilt, but it's also the block that makes your quilt. Set our seams. We're just going to repeat and repeat here for a few minutes, and then we'll have enough units to put this block together. You have to be very careful with a lot of these pieces, because if you pull on them, they're going to stretch and you're not going to get as nice a finish as you want. Same process as before. Start from the bottom and go up this time. Sometimes you have to lift the presser foot to get the end exactly under the needle as you want it. And as you can see, you're going to have a lot of those little blocks by the time you finish this quilt. Press it open. This This is unit 3B. Put that back in place. Now we're going to do unit 3C. I have done all but one of them, just so I can show you again. Keep all your little labels. You will use this for every single block. There's 15 different pieces of fabric in this quilt, and a lot of them are so close to being the same that you can't really tell them apart. So I'd already marked this one so it wouldn't take so long. Same as before, right side first, start from the middle and go down. And as I said before, when you're doing yours, you can just chain sew all of them and then cut them at one time. Just don't lose what goes where. Set our seam. Trim. Make sure you've pressed down on the rotary cutter. Press open. Other side. Bottom up. Set our seam again. Trim. Press open. That is unit 3C. So let's put a label on it. Okay, now moving right along, we're going to make our unit 4A, which there's just 4 of. So we're going to use fabric O, our unit 1As. One goes to this side, the other goes to that side. As you're laying this out, make sure that these two pieces are facing each other. And the last piece we're going to put in is fabric M. Now I like to put these together like this. I do not like to start sewing where that seam is, so I'm going to turn it upside down and start from the other end. I like to keep my pieces as flat as possible. Same with this one. We're going to start from the end where there's not a seam. Cut them apart. Set your seams. Open up and press to the solid piece of fabric. We're going to flip this over onto this and wiggle these seams until you can feel that they've locked. So with this seam up and this seam down, that ensures that you get a good intersection there where your points join. Let's get another little ender in here. And now my machine needs to rest. I don't know why it's tired. Now I'm not going to set my seams because I want to show you a trick I learned from Eleanor Burns on how to make sure that when you press this, that it is as flat as can be in the center. You're going to take your piece, put one thumb there and one here, and pop that center open so you have a little forepatch. You're going to press around so that you make sure you have every seam going in the direction that it's supposed to go. Hold it for just a second to get it good and flat. And now you can see your little forepatch there. And when you place it flat, it's not trying to stick up in the center. This is known as Unit 4A. And I already have some of them done. So we'll put this one right there. Now we can start doing our assembly. We're going to go down here to Unit 3A and 3B. Normally, when you're sewing flying geese together, they're going this way. But this time, they're not. They're going down. We need a Unit 2A and a Unit 2B. Let me move our papers out of the way. We're going to sew these first. Sew with this flying geese on top. And if you can see, if I can get my hands in the right place. Sorry, I am just really not apt at this yet. I did it earlier, but I can't get it now. There we go. You have like a V shape here. When you're sewing, I want you to stay to the right side of that intersection, just like a needle's width. Reason being, your fabric takes up space as it's being turned and pressed. So you're going to allow a little extra room for that to turn so that you do not lose your point on your flying geese. So we'll see how we've done. We're going to press this open, and I want to press it to the light colored. When you get finished, you can see you haven't lost the tip of the geese. That's what you're looking for, because a piece that is cut off just doesn't look nice. Now we're going to attach this. If you pay attention here, you have a seam going down and a seam going up. Lock those together and then run that through the machine. That also helps you keep your points in those corners. Points are very important, and there are a lot of them in this quilt. These first 5 blocks are the most intricate. Take your time. If you get frustrated, get up, walk away, go get a drink. It's not hard, it's just paying attention. Press that open. And as you can see, maybe not, what a nice point we have there. Let's see if we can create that on the other side. It's generally just a matter of locking in those seams so that your machine can do the most of the work by pressing those together. I am so ready to see this quilt finished. Okay, this is another Unit 5A. We'll add that to the ones I've already done. Let's go back to our pattern. We're ready to go to Unit 6A. So we need our M. I like to put all this out in front of me so I can see exactly what it is that I'm trying to do. We have 4 C's. We need our unit C3. That's these. Pay attention to which direction they go, because once again, your geese are going in instead of our normal outward direction. Out of the way. Okay, I like to chain sew everything so I can just keep sewing. So I go from here to here. Once again, start sewing on this side because trying to make a seam go under the presser foot right at the beginning is not going to be very friendly. So there's that one. Put your flying geese unit on the top. Make sure you pay attention to where that intersection is and stay just a little to the right of it. And not all of your geese are going to come out nice, but we're just going to do the best we can. Finished is better than perfect. As I'm sure our grandmothers and great-grandmothers were not that concerned about where their points were. All they were concerned about was getting their quilts done so they could get them to their family. So that we don't get confused, I'm going to open these back up. Then we're going to go to this. When you do get ready to do your pieces, I do suggest an ironing surface right beside you, because There'd be a lot of getting up and down and going to the ironing surface. So if you got something close, especially for these first 5 blocks. Get this one off. You can see there's just a lot of pieces, but it's all a matter of how you keep yourself organized. This is not a quilt for a beginner. We're looking good so far. Let's get this piece off. Now there are no pressing instructions. A lot of quilts anymore show you which direction to press. With all these added seams in here, I like to press this to the outside, this to the inside, and this to the outside. So when I join them, they lock together. So let's press these. Pressing is your friend. Without pressing, you're not going to have a pretty finished piece. So you can see where we are right now. I'm going to flip this down. Lock your seams. You can wiggle that and you can feel those go together. Don't forget to pay attention to your flying geese point. So this time we have to take it off the machine. Let's put us a little ender there. Let's look at our points. Not too bad. I'm going to flip this, turn it over, get your goose up on the top. Lock those seams. Don't get excited and forget to watch where your point is going to be. Once you've done this 2 or 3 times, it just becomes second nature to just know it without even thinking about it. All my pieces are beginning to come together here. I'm going to press to set my seams. Then we're going to look at this to see whether we want the seams to go in or out. A lot of times your seams will just tell you which way they're going, whether you like it or not. So these are going to want to go in to the centerpiece. Press, hold just a second, press, let's look at the back, and doesn't hurt to do a little bit from the back side. That's a lot of seams there going together, and we want this nice and flat so we can finish this block. Okay, there's our centerpiece. Now we're going to the block 1A. Let's lay this out. Let me move a couple of things so that we have some room here. Hard to do this in just a small viewing area. We're going to put our units 5A here, 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 and here. And our units 4A in each corner. Make sure you have all dark around the outside edge. The light blue goes to the center. Using the same process we did before, I'm going to flip these over. Lock those seams. They're not going to play as well this time because they're both going the same direction. You can always just kind of flip that back a little bit and see where your 1/4 inch is. I do not like to use pins because I only end up pinning myself. Flip that one over. Put your flying geese unit on top. Line everything up. There's a lot of stopping and starting when you're doing just one block at a time, but doing the others, it went pretty quick. Let's put that back in place. Put this back in place and work on this one. I want to look and try to get those as close as I can. Sometimes it goes like you want it to, and other times it doesn't. Now we're going to come back and sew this corner. One off and put it back. lots of little seams. Just getting ahead of myself here. Let's get the middle done. My points are not as happy as I would like them to be, but there is just a lot going on in these blocks that if you just move over just a fraction of an inch, you've lost something. And the most mistakes I have seen in quilts at quilt shows is that a lot of times their points are off as much as 1/8 of an inch. I couldn't do that. I would have to go back and resew it. Just a little bit off, I don't mind, because when you're standing back admiring the entire quilt, you're not going to see, you're going to see your mistakes, but no one else is going to. Okay, now we need to press again and figure out which way to go. I think we'll press these out and those in. Did not realize how difficult it was to press while sitting in a chair. There's that.